Welcome to Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. It's like coffee with an analyst, but there's no actual coffee. Each episode, we interviewed an expert in the field of law enforcement analysis to share their career-defining stories and to get their insights on the world. Please join us on recognizing and learning from these brilliant minds as we define the law enforcement analysis profession one episode at a time.
Thank you for joining me. I hope many aspects of your life are progressing. My name is Jason Elder, and today our guest is going to be anonymous. So our guest is going to remain anonymous because her work is such that she wants to remain anonymous, but she did want to reveal open sources to all of us. So while her identity is going to remain a secret, we are going to share lots of open resources today. And with me, my guest is Jennifer. Jennifer, how are we doing today?
Very good, Jason. Thank you for having me on, and glad to be sharing some information with you.
All right. Well, very good. Well, thank you for volunteering to do this. It's nice because we did hear a little bit of feedback from the survey for the podcast. And one of the things that was asked about was open sources. So how did you get into studying open sources?
Well, there's just so much information out there. Working within the government, you have access to certain government resources, but then there's just this treasure trove, literally, of open source information out there that it's doing the analytical work that we all do. It's kind of hard not to get into it just because the information is out there. It's just part of the job. You got to exploit what's out there.
Just a note to the audience. So all these resources that we're about to share with you today, we are going to put the actual links in the show notes. So feel free to check out the show notes and get the exact links on how to access each one of these open sources. Okay, Jennifer, what's the first one you want to go over?
Well, I just wanted to touch on just a few little things we're going to cover. So we are going to touch on some government resources, some completely open source. Everything's publicly available, but some stuff comes from government sources. Other things are coming from the public. We'll touch on some that find people, find businesses, social media, some crime analysis, Tradecraft, and then we're going to kind of touch on some other tools that I think are interesting, and hopefully Jason and the rest of everybody thinks as well. So just to preface it, there's two types of, quote unquote, free resources. As I mentioned, there's the government resources, which really aren't free. They're paid for by tax dollars. So you should absolutely take advantage of because your tax dollars pay for them. And then those that are in the open source realm, they may be free, but just be aware when you're using some of these sources, they could be collecting on you and sharing your information. So they're monetizing you somehow. That's how Facebook and other sites can still exist. They're monetizing you. What you search for may be of interest to them and how you use the resource. You may become the product. So free is great, but just kind of be aware of potentially how what you're doing could be used for the resource's benefit. So
no such thing as a free lunch, right?
Exactly. It's unfortunate that we're in the audio medium and not visual medium, but I have this fun little meme that I like, which is a girl saying nothing is in life is free. And then it's showing the face hugger from Alien. And he's holding a sign saying free hugs, Gotcha. He says love is.
But, all right. Well, you'll have to share that with me. I'll put it on the website.
Absolutely. But, the nice thing about open source resources is they're free. The free tools are abundant on the internet. You can find anything you could possibly want to do, want to look for. It's out there. And there's cutting edge developments. But the downside with using some of these free tools, the validity and reliability could be questionable. You have to be very aware whatever you're using, especially if it's for law enforcement purposes, if it's for doing crime analysis, something that could be coming to trial, it could prove problematic if you use it at trial, because do you really know how that tool works? Okay. And then on the flip side with government resources, the awesome thing about them is a lot of times there is trading, there's documentation, there's technical assistance available, and there's been legal vetting done of those resources. So that's awesome. But the downside with government resources is the government is often slow to adapt or accept new technology and often are behind the curve, on the latest and greatest. So that's kind of like my little disclaimer before we go into free stuff. One of the first ones is a good people finder. We're always looking for, trying to look up people. We may have very little information to go on. So one of my favorite ones is Zaba Search. That's Zaba Search, zabasearch.com. And again, as Jason mentioned, we'll include the links in the show notes. Zaba Search indexes publicly available data. So this includes property records, change of address, court records, marriage, divorce filings, voter registration, directory assistance, sweepstakes entries, etc. It is a search engine, not a database. Some of the people finders are more databases. This is a search engine to find other information, kind of like a Google of finding people. You need to be aware that the information may be inaccurate or out of date. So just be aware of that. If you get this information, this is not something solely you want to build a search warrant out of. You need to validate and confirm the information through other sources. This is more of a lead generator for you. Zaba Search is owned by Analyst, and advanced searches are directed through Analyst's premium or paid services. So that's how they make their money, is you get, the little bit of the information for free. If you really want to dive deep, you have to pay for that. And Analyst's parent company is Inome, and they're out of Bellevue, Washington, which is obviously based in the US. And one of the reasons I like Zaba Search over some of the other freemium, as they say, searches is it might give you a couple more things that some of the other ones don't. Like you might get an age or a partial date of birth, something like that. There's one or two nuggets, and those can sometimes make the difference in finding the person you're looking for.
Have you ever used their paid service?
I have not, no.
Okay. Because I see that a lot, that it's just as you described, is that they want to get you into their website. Mm-hmm. So they'll give you a little bit of information. And then once you want to click on the full report, that's what they want you to pay. So I know a lot of services do that.
Yep.
And then is there any tricks or tips in terms of using it, in terms of what words to use? Or I see telephone numbers on there and reverse lookup. In the advanced search, is there anything, tips or tricks in there that you want to share?
Nothing too specific. Just like with a lot of searches, you may want to start broad. And then if you get too many results back, start to narrow down, narrow by location, state, city, and age range if you know it. Start big and then narrow down, your information if you get too many results back.
And then what about your second one?
A second one is called Black Book Online, which provides a list of public record sites. For example, phone numbers, corporations, county public records, death records, email lookups, voter registration, and many more. So you can't look up, if you want to look up Jason Elder, you're not going to get any information. But if you want to look up, okay, what phone number databases, public record sites are available out there? What's available in Texas? Can I find land ownership, house ownership records, death records? What is available in this state or in this region? It will give you a list of those resources. So if you're not familiar with what information is available out there, then this is a great place to start, especially if you're looking at a particular topic or a particular state or region, what resources are available there. And this site was created by a California private investigator. And so the address is blackbookonline.info.
Okay. So this is a tool to find other open source tools.
Yes. So it's just going to point you in the direction of where you need to search.
Yeah. And when you talk about land ownership, those are county records.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to go county by county throughout the whole United States if you're not familiar with exactly how to get to a particular county or a set of counties. So I can see where that would be valuable.
Yes. And of course, not all counties and cities are the same with the information that is publicly available or how easy it is to, navigate. But this at least will point you in the right direction.
It also reminds me of another source that I've used before, and that's Toddington.com. Not only do they have the same concept of you can search their website to find other open source intelligence tools, they also do some training as well. So if you're interested in something like that, I also recommend Toddington.com.
Excellent. It's good to have more than one tool that maybe does similar, almost the same thing, because they're not all created equal. They don't all find the same thing. I was just in an open source class the other day that said, yeah, if you're doing a Google image, they were like, do an image search, rather reverse image search. You should search Google, search this site, and then search this site. Do the same image 3 different times. So, you should try that with your information. Don't use just one thing only, because one day that site might not be good anymore, and then you're kind of in the lurch trying to find your next resource.
Well, that's when it's a good idea to take screenshots of this information that you're gathering.
Yes, absolutely. I screenshot and PDF stuff all the time because, it will be gone.
2 good tips right there. Get second and third sources and screenshot a lot of this, because this is anything on the web can be changed very quickly.
And then also, you may not remember how you got where you eventually got. If you're going down a rabbit hole, and I've done this before, you go down the rabbit hole, you're so excited about finding things and following the next breadcrumb that you forget, okay, wait, how do I get there, when you have to go back and document that this led me to this, to this. So always document.
I mean, I do that in my real life, right? I'm always amazed when I look at my history. I was like, I can't believe how many sites I clicked on. I'm amazed when I try to go back in my history. I'm trying to find one particular page, and I'm like, man, do I spend a lot of time on the internet?
Absolutely.
All right. Very good. All right. What's the next one?
Okay, another good one is if you're looking up businesses. So Open Corporates is a site that has a lot of good information. And in fact, I have some paid subscription-based services, and I still find myself going to this one to help, because sometimes the subscription-based ones are very specific and not always that forgiving with if I misspell something or don't quite have it right. Open Corporates is like, hey, I think you meant this, and I found what I think you're looking for. And I'm like, yes, that was it. And then I can go to the subscription side and type in exactly what I'm looking for to get that deeper dive. But Open Corporates, opencorporates.com is the site. Allows you to search businesses as well as by company officer. So say you have the business, obviously you search that and find all the information that's available. But say you have an individual and you believe he's a business owner or some sort of significant person in a company, but you're not sure what that is, then you can look it up by the company officer. This is especially beneficial if a company name, maybe they change the name, or you think it's an LLC, but it's really Inc. or something like that. And that's why I said some of those other searches can not be very, very forgiving if you're looking them up in a specific way. So a little bit more about Open Corporates. It combines information collected by scraping the web with open data from government bodies, as well as crowdsourcing. And it will actually point you towards the Secretary of State's website for that specific state, or Secretary of the Commonwealth, whichever one for that specific state. It does offer a premium service, so there's where they make their money, which includes deep searching into results and output of the data in a particular form, such as a CSV or XML. So that's what you pay for to get that little bit of extra benefits. It is a UK based website, and they have another project which looked interesting called Open Charities. However, the last time I looked, it was just UK charities. So for those in the US, it wouldn't obviously be as beneficial unless you're investigating overseas goings on. But yeah, Open Corporates, it's been pretty useful for me.
Just in case there's somebody in the audience that doesn't quite understand crowdsourcing, could you just give a quick definition of crowdsourcing?
So that's where people out on the internet will then help supply that information and fill in the blanks on a company, maybe update, their roster if what was pulled from a government source could be outdated. So they may update it. So maybe include the website, include email and other contact information that maybe the government doesn't collect. So it could be the company that actually updates their information, or it could be customers or other people out there that would update the information. You would kind of think of it like, Wikipedia is crowdsourced. Basically, it's people contributing freely that information.
Now, will this give situations where businesses are connected? So if there's a parent company or a shell company, would this give you that type of information, that a connection between different businesses?
So it will show some of that. It's just going to depend on what information is out there, if those connections have been made. Yeah, so it's just going to depend. It's going to differ from business to business.
Okay.
So, but I have seen some indications where so-and-so may be an officer of this other company as well.
All right. What's next?
So next, diving into social media. This is an oldie as far as social media goes, but a goodie. Tweetdeck. So Tweetdeck I've used for years. It's a really great tool. The URL is tweetdeck.twitter.com. And as you can guess from that, it is owned by Twitter. It started out not being owned by Twitter. And when it first started out, it now is just a tool to bring in Twitter feeds. But before that, it did have other social media sites that it included. But Twitter bought out TweetDeck. And so now it's just a primarily Twitter-focused tool. So you can monitor Twitter feeds, searches, hashtags, location-based posts, etc. You do have to have a Twitter account to utilize it, but that's pretty easy to get a Twitter account. If you look at there's real people Twitter accounts, and then there's kind of I don't know what you would call it, the funny ones. You know, I remember a few years ago, a snake, I think it was a king cobra, got out of a New York zoo. And before long, somebody had created a Twitter account for the king cobra that was running around. So it's really not that hard to get a Twitter account, but it does have a dashboard, so it enables easy viewing. It includes features like live streaming and notifications. So if you're looking at a particular user or a particular hashtag or keyword, it keeps updating your feed as you're looking at it. And so if you're following a particular popular hashtag or very common word, your feed will go crazy just updating. You can turn on notifications. You have to have, it's a browser-based application, so you have to have the browser up on TweetDeck for it to notify you. It just kind of chimes the little ding on your desktop there to notify you. It does allow you to observe without following. So if it's familiar with Twitter, if you're on the Twitter application itself, you click to follow people. So then you see every time they post something new, whether it just be a statement or media, pictures, video, something, or even retweeting what somebody else posted about. But the thing with that, when you follow them, they know you're following them. Shows up, so-and-so followed you. And then you show up in their followers. And so people can see that you are following them. The nice thing about TweetDeck is it lets you follow without actually following those people. So you can kind of ghost follow, if you will.
Okay. So can you also do keywords, not people per se, but if you know of certain events or certain words that are going to be used in the Twitterverse, that you could also get updates on that as well?
Yeah. So the TweetDeck it has a dashboard that sets up all these columns, and you can have as many columns as you want. There's probably is a max limit, but I haven't found it if there is. But so I have some that I'm looking at a particular user. I have others where I have keywords. And if you're doing keywords, that's several words, it's a good idea sometimes to go ahead and put those in quotes to make sure you're getting that specific phrase if that's important to you. Hashtags are great. So obviously, and for those old school, the pound symbol, Jason.
Old man Elder, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. To use the hashtags. And those are great to use because then, people are specifically mentioning whatever that hashtag is, whether it be for a specific event or a topic or even a region. So some people, a hashtag is a region with either what that city or region is called, or even a nickname or something for them. So, and you can also search by a geocoded area. Now that relies on people having their location services turned on to find those tweets in an area. With TweetDeck, you use trial and error to really nail down what you're looking for, especially if you're monitoring a special event or something. You do your research ahead of time to see, okay, how are people talking about this event? What kind of hashtags might they use? Are there good social media influencers out there that it would be good to follow that are keeping up with the goings on for that?
It would be interesting to know, because you're not actually following them, you might not have to follow the normal guidelines of social media investigations. Different states have different rules that you must follow. So you want to get more information on that if you're brand new to the social media investigation.
Yeah.
For instance, some you can't put a fake picture up there, or some won't let you use a fake name, and there's all kinds of rules and regulations to what you can actually create a stage name on these social media accounts. So, and it seems like every state's different, of course, in the United States, but
yeah, I mean, obviously use your agency's policies and follow those guidance for anything online activity, because it varies from, agency to agency and city and state and all that. So
yeah, I laughed in the beginning of this segment because you said this was an oldie but goodie.
Yeah.
And I, of course, am not on Twitter, so
Yeah.
I had no idea what this is. And so it's old, and I've not even have no idea that it existed anyway. So, but very good.
It's been around for a while. So if you're in OSINT world, TweetDeck, oh, that's old news. But then there's some people that just haven't heard of it. To me, it's still a good tool, and I've still use it all these years. It's probably one of the rare ones. I probably can't say that about many tools, especially social media tools now.
All right. And then Hootsuite's next.
Yeah, so Hootsuite is very similar to TweetDeck. So if anyone's familiar with those, the layout is very similar. It has columns that you can add your feeds to. It is a freemium tool. So it starts out free, and then if you want the bells and whistles, you have to pay for them. So with Hootsuite, you can connect up to 3 social networks to your Hootsuite account for free. If you want to go beyond 3, that's when it starts costing money. And there's other bells and whistles in there that if you want to pay for their service. The networks you can include are Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, WordPress, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest. And now you have to have an account on each of those, each network you want to link in. So you can't just throw them in there and expect to search. You have to link in an account to Hootsuite and allow Hootsuite to have access to your account. Again, it has a similar dashboard layout to TweetDeck, where you have columns of feeds going on, searches. You can do geo-fence searches, keywords, hashtags, users, you name it. And again, you're just, with the free tool, you're limited by 3 networks. So you got to pick your poisons there. But after that, you can set up as many columns as you want to search as many ways as you want. It is, so just a little bit on the ownership. Hootsuite is headquartered out of Vancouver, and their URL is hootsuite.com.
Am I understanding this correctly? Then could you set it up so you're searching all these different platforms at once?
The downside with this is for each of your columns, each of your feeds, you're pointing it at, okay, I want to search this particular hashtag or topic. I want to search Twitter. And then you would set up another column. I want to search Facebook for this, and et cetera. Okay. So it's unfortunate. Yeah, you can't just say search all of this stuff. It does make you pick, like, okay, search this here, search this here.
All right. I'll tell you something funny about Pinterest. When I first read it, I didn't call it Pinterest. I called it P-interest. And I couldn't figure out. I was like, what's this P-interest thing? And of course, my wife laughed and makes fun of me still to this day that I called it P-interest instead of Pinterest. Yeah. So I'm sure that's P-interest is something totally different that we don't want to talk about. But
yeah, don't Google that. And just to say, both TweetDeck and Hootsuite were really set up for social media management, but those looking to search social media use them for the more research purposes than posting, I guess.
Sure. All right. Then what's next?
Next is a crime analysis Tradecraft tool. So this is a government resource. It's called the Analysis Toolkit. It's developed with support of the U.S. Department of Justice and Bureau of Justice Assistance. So again, these are your tax dollars at work, so you should definitely take advantage of it. It is a clearinghouse for publicly available crime and intelligence analysis resources. So if you're new to the crime analysis world or taking on a new policy, if you will, you've been given a new project, say it has something to do with, real-time crime center, for instance, they have a whole section where you can look up information on that. Management, staffing, training, data metrics. There's all kinds of interesting categories on there. And it's just good. Again, if you're having to develop a policy or maybe update one, refresh it, this is a great place to go to get information to help you do your job.
And then next, you just have cool tools. What are your cool tools?
Yes. One of them I think is either about to go away or has gone away when I was looking at it. So it may not be around anymore. And it's really sad. NAMUS, NAMUS, they're at namus.gov. So they provide free tools for assisting in missing person and unidentified person cases. So I saw something on social media not too long ago where they had run out of funding and were having to close down. I hope maybe at the last minute funding is going to come through, or they get funding later and are able to kind of pick back up to what they were doing. Because for those who work in cold cases and missing person cases, they're a tremendous help, as you can imagine. They are restricted to law enforcement. You would have to be involved in a law enforcement agency to utilize them. But yeah, I hope they can still exist in some form going forward. Another tool that's freely available is called CrimeStat, and it's available through the National Institute of Justice, nij.gov. Am I saying that right, Jason?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good. I was looking at after a while you get so many acronyms, you kind of have to guess what something stands for.
Yeah.
But it is a spatial statistics program. So for those that like doing spatial statistics, I'm not one of those people, but if that's your jam, definitely check that out. Another one that is limited to law enforcement as well is the National Insurance Crime Bureau, NICB. So they assist with insurance fraud resources. So they're a great resource to take advantage of. An additional resource is through the National White Collar Crime Center, nw3c.org. So they have some tools that are geared towards law enforcement. So if you're investigating economic and high-tech crime, they have several different tools that are available for law enforcement. And then within that same vein, the International Association of Chiefs of Police have a law enforcement cyber center. So IACPcybercenter.org. They have cyber-related tools and resources there.
So with these law enforcement tools, do you have to have a special login, or can anybody use them, or is this geared just for people that are in law enforcement?
So a majority of these are just going to be law enforcement. So you're going to have an official agency email to sign up with them. Okay. Some of them might have to vet you a little bit further with letterhead or contacting your chief or supervisor to verify who you are. But I know CrimeStat is not limited. You can, I believe, access that. But some of the other ones, they may have a login and then you have to sign up for an account and they verify that you're law enforcement before you get access. So
there's some kind of credentialing involved.
Yes.
And then you have a couple other free tools that you wanted to list?
Everyone's always on the lookout for what's next. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of people that I really admire and consider them open source Intel or OSINT gurus. And so I would direct you to them to check out. And some of their stuff they have available for free. Some you do have to pay for, whether it be training or other items. But one of my favorites is Kirby Plessis. You can follow her on Twitter. She's Kirbster, Kirbstr. And then her company is at plessis.net. And that's spelled Plessas. And again, we'll have all the URLs and links in the show notes. She's just a great resource. She's former military intel, and now she has her private company, but she just lives and breathes OSINT information. You can go to her website and request to get added to a PDF that she sends out maybe once a quarter or something like that, once a quarter, twice a year, something like that. It's a list she updates with tools, helpful hints if you're searching Facebook, if you're wanting, what's a good reverse image search tool. She has just a plethora of information. She updates it routinely. She does offer training through her site, which does cost. But if you can ever find any webinars or other things she's doing, I would definitely take advantage of it. She's worth it. She's just, I can't say enough nice things about her. Another awesome guru is Michael Basil, and you can follow him on Twitter at Intel Techniques. Go to his website, inteltechniques.com. He has a lot of great information. I believe he also puts out podcasts and other videos and other tips to share. He has a couple books that he's actually probably more than a couple at this point that he's put out, which do cost money, but he's just a fantastic resource when it comes to information out there. And then also information to help protect yourself online, how to, help scrub yourself from the internet as much as that's possible, and other things he provides. Another great resource is OSINT Techniques. You can find them osintechniques.com. OSINT Curious, and they're at osintcurio.us. They also have a podcast, which I've listened to several times. And I know Kirby has participated in the OSINT Curious podcast before. Open Source Policing, opensourcepolicing.org. So this is open sources geared towards policing. And then when in doubt, search your favorite social media for the hashtag OSINT, OSINT, to see, what people are talking about, what is the latest, greatest thing out there that the kids are talking about. I would encourage that.
Very good. One other one I'd like to add to this list is a website copier, httrack.com. And this is a free program that'll allow you to bring an entire web page offline. And it's a pretty good utility if you're wanting to download an entire web page with all the different links offline. That's what that's for. I could see that coming in handy when you're trying to keep track of take a snapshot in time, basically, of the websites.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about different open sources that I usually use or I usually get asked about. I do a lot of teaching in Excel. So people will ask me about different Excel sources. The first couple of times I was asked about that, I was caught off guard because I didn't necessarily go to one particular site. I would just Google it, right? I just go there, whatever my problem is, Microsoft Excel, and then whatever my problem is. Things would come up and then I'd pick from there what I'm trying to figure out. I will say that Mr. Excel has a website and he does a bunch of YouTube videos that are fantastic. I mean, he has thousands of videos. If you don't have a particular issue in mind, you can just go through his various videos. They're usually only about 5 minutes long and learn stuff for future use. Another person that has a YouTube channel, it used to be Miss Excel, and I'm looking at it now and I wonder if they made her change it because she's not Miss Excel on YouTube anymore. So it's Leela Garani. I'm probably butchering that name, but she's really good too. I will add, sometimes you got to be careful on some of the forums though that you click on. I actually got a virus one time clicking on a message that was left on a forum.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I was thinking of too, this isn't really an open source, but it's a source of information that folks that are listening may have access to, but don't realize that it's there. Oftentimes, I think about employees that have left the department. They have the work email. They may have a folder still on some network somewhere that you may want to have access to, or at least work with IT to see if you can have the capability to search the email or their old drive. There's got to be a lot of logistics set up for that because you can't obviously go through somebody's email. But I do think back at my time as an analyst. I mean, there would be times that somebody would email me and say, hey, can I get information on so-and-so? And I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. And I would do a research project, send it back out to them. A lot of that information is going to be in my folder that I left there, but some of it I probably didn't make it to the folder, but would just be in my email. And that's nowhere else. That's the only two places it's going to be, is either in my email or in my folder. You might be looking for intel on that particular person now, and the only way you're going to find it is you're going to search those two sources. So that former employee's email might be a silo of information that's sitting there that you could access and find useful.
Absolutely.
And there are obviously tons and tons and tons of sources, and certainly we're not going to be able to go through all of them. These were just a couple that we had. Jennifer teaches this, and this is one of her presentations. A lot of information that I used in the past, but there's tons of information. So if you have a open source that you want to share, find our message for this episode on the forums, on Facebook, on Twitter, and share your open source, the ones that you like to use. Certainly we have missed some, right? We haven't gone through all of these.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jennifer, our last segment is Words to the World. I give the guest the last word, and you can promote any idea that you wish. Jennifer, what are your words to the world?
Well, these are not my words, but I think it just fits this topic very well. It's a quote from Joel Caplan, who is a professor at Rutgers University and criminal justice program. But he says the best analytical tool is a skilled operator who knows how and when to apply each crime analysis method. So one of the reasons I like this quote particularly is because you can have the coolest tool out there, the stuff that does all the bells and whistles and everything. But if you're not skilled, if you're not trained up, you're not confident in what you're doing, it's not really going to make that big of a difference. So really, you are your best resource. So don't forget about that.
Very good. Well, I leave every guest with, you've given me just enough to talk bad about you later. But in this case, folks don't know who you are anyway. I guess the challenge is you can use these open sources to try to figure out who Jennifer is. But please, if you do know who she is, please don't put it out on any of the social media platforms, please.
Yes, please.
But thank you, Jennifer, so much for being on the show, and you be safe.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on Analyst Talk with Jason Alder. We hope you not only enjoyed the show, but also learned something new. For more information on our guests and information relating to today's topic, please visit our website at leapodcast.com. Special thanks to The Rough and Tumble for our theme song. For more of their music, you can visit their website at theroughandtumble.com. Also thanks to Kyle McMullen for our show logo. For more of his design, please visit his website at moderntype.com. The show is hosted, recorded, and edited by Jason Elder and written by me, Mindy. You can contact us both via the LEA podcast website. Please join us again next time as we interview another expert in this great field.